Welcome to RH Movie Recap. Today we will discuss the mystery science fiction disaster film Ad Astra. Watch out for spoilers and take precautions. The near future on Earth is a time of both hope and conflict. Humanity seeks intelligent life and the promise of progress in the stars. Major Roy is a professional astronaut who has no dreams and no feelings. He does an excellent job because that is what he is good at on the space station. Outside the Earth, Spacecom is conducting their usual research as Roy checks on the equipment. He hears a strange sound, and some shock waves have hit the space station, killing the people on board. Roy decides to jump, and as he falls, he remains calm and responds to the control. Roy enters the Earth's atmosphere and deploys his parachute, but a piece of metal from the space station collides with it, causing serious damage. Roy manages to land safely on the ground. Roy thinks to himself at night that despite being the sole survivor, he can't feel anything. The next day, Roy is invited to a meeting from space via a secret confidential message. He attends the meeting and meets the general, who informs him that the shock waves that killed his teammates were caused by Neptune. They had now questioned Roy about the Lima project, whose commander was his father. Roy informs them that he is aware of it and that humans first encountered it 29 years ago, entered space and attempted to find a new life for them, but the crew went missing in space, and they had no communication with them. People regard Roy's father, Clifford, as a great astronaut, but the general must ensure that Roy's physiological condition is suitable for the mission. The general informs Roy that his mission is to eliminate antimatter and that he believes his father is still alive in space. He requires Roy to send audio recordings to Neptune in order to obtain assistance from his father, and all of this information is strictly confidential. When Roy returns to his room, he plays one of his father's old messages in which his father tells him that they are going to examine every star in the hopes of discovering new intelligent life. An old man approaches Roy and informs him that Heed is his father's old friend and that he has also participated in many space missions with him. Suddenly, Quest asks Roy how he feels about his father, to which Roy responds that he believes his father is dead. The old man informs Roy politely that his father may still be alive and hiding in Neptune. Before leaving for the mission, his father appears to have done something suspicious. Roy attempts to record an audio message for his wife Eve. Roy now performs a physiological test and describes his mental state to the computer, and the computer quickly approves him for the mission. He boards the spaceship, accompanied by his father's old friend. The spaceship takes off and makes its first stop at the sun. While inside, Roy notices more Neptune shock waves, which have killed so many people in space. After landing on the moon, Roy sees people and remembers his father. Soon after, a man comes to meet Roy and tells him that their next station is Mars, but they must first move to the other side of the moon, where some intruders will try to kill them. In need of resources, the crew prepares and begins moving on the moon's surface. While traveling in space cars, they notice unidentified rovers heading their way. They are soon attacked, and two of their space cars crash. Roy's spacesuit is shot and punctured. Roy managed to halt the leak while their driver was also shot. Roy takes the wheel and kills some of the enemies, but the space car crashes down the hill. The space is dark, and some light signals are visible, indicating that Roy has arrived at his destination. The lady at the station tells Roy to hurry to the rocket. His father's friend comes to a halt, informs him that he cannot accompany him at this time, and hands over the classified data. While telling him not to trust anyone, the captain recognizes him as Clifford's son and is impressed by him because Roy is the son of a legend and the best in the galaxy. They then began their 19-day journey to Mars. While traveling, Roy notices the crew having a good time. He then decides to take a side and view the classified information. He sees the information about the Lima project, where the general has given the order to kill Commander Roy's son from the Lima project in case he did not communicate with them after Roy's message. When Roy sees this message, he becomes upset and recalls his childhood memories with his father. On the way, the captain notices a spacecraft with a mayday call and stops to investigate, despite Roy's advice not to. When the captain informs him that this is his call, they are forced to manually enter the craft because there is no communication from there. Roy insists on following the captain's lead and suits up. They both board the spacecraft as the captain continues to extol Roy's father's brilliance. They began looking for the crew and decided to split up to save time. After moving forward, Roy notices some suspicious animal signs on the spacecraft's walls and witnesses the captain being attacked by a bloody monkey. Roy shoots the monkey while attempting to save the captain. He manages to lock the door. Roy eventually kills the monkey by pressing a red button that causes the oxygen to escape. After returning, the crew attempts to provide first aid to the captain, but he does not survive. They move the captain's dead body into space while bestowing final blessings on him. Roy describes the accident to the control center and passes the physiological test. It appears that every astronaut must pass this test, and if they fail, they will be unable to continue their journey. Roy joins the co-pilot, and they soon approach Mars. The co-pilot gave the order for an automatic landing, but then a shockwave hit and they lost control. Roy instructs the co-pilot to land the spacecraft manually, so Roy lands the spacecraft manually and informs the co-pilot that he will not inform the control center. After arriving on Mars, Roy meets a lady who tells him that he is fortunate to have landed there because 3 of the ships were lost due to the shockwaves. Roy then goes to meet the operations director, who gave him a script to read and a message to send to his father. Roy appears emotionless while reading the script, and the director receives no response or signal from Neptune. They now ask Roy to return to his restroom and try again. Roy enters the restroom and begins to suspect that they are only using him. Roy appears to lack a personal life and to be unsure of what he is doing. The next day, Roy receives another script, but instead of reading it, he tries to talk to his father emotionally, telling him that he remembers his father teaching him to have strong ethics and that he enjoys music. Roy's eyes well up with tears as he speaks, and he becomes emotional. Roy waits a while after sending the message to see if they have received a response. The director refuses to provide Roy with any information. Roy becomes agitated, but he must pass his physiological test. He administers the test but fails. He now attempts to contact Spacecom, but the security codes have been changed as well. He returns to his restroom and becomes more tense. Soon after, a lady enters and starts talking to him, but Roy refuses to talk. But the lady tells him that she needs to tell him some confidential information. She informs him that his father is responsible for the deaths of 1,100 people as a result of the shock waves, and that her parents died as well. Roy is at a loss as to what to do with the lady, who confirms him by showing him a final secret message sent by Roy's father. Roy's father informs them that his crew is experiencing physiological issues that they are unable to control. The other crew members begin fighting and attempt to flee, but he saves himself by locking the spacecraft. Roy is now in a tense situation because he believes his father is a hero. Roy decides to sneak aboard the rocket bound for Neptune in order to destroy his father's spacecraft and see his father one last time. The lady assists him in finding the secret passage. In a spacesuit, Roy moves through an underground tunnel. When he arrives, he discovers that he does not have enough time to board the space rocket, but Roy decides to take the risk because it is his only chance to meet his father. He finds a way to open the secret entrance. When the countdown ended, the rocket took off. While the captain investigates an emergency alarm that is beeping, he attempts to prevent Roy from entering, while Roy instructs them to put on the oxygen masks because the oxygen levels are low. Because they couldn't hear, the entire crew, including the captain, perished while attempting to apprehend Roy. Roy was alive because he was wearing his spacesuit. Roy is saddened by the crew's death and tries to inform Control that it was not his fault and that they can view the flight recorder. He then turns off the communication to avoid revealing his location while telling the Control that he will complete the mission alone and will be fully committed to it. He then activates the dark mode and begins traveling. He is lonely and depressed most of the time. He has physiological issues as well, but he tries to see his wife and father's messages over and over to stay committed to his mission on the road. Roy admits to being alone, both physically and mentally, and that it is affecting him. He finally arrives at Neptune after a long journey. Roy takes a deep breath and boards a small craft to travel to his father's spacecraft. He also loads the nuclear bomb that will be used to destroy the spacecraft. While landing, Roy's minicraft is hit by a shock wave, which destroys its CPU. Roy attempts to dock but fails, so he decides to move forward, and while exiting, Roy notices his minicraft is traveling far in space. Roy forgets about it and boards his father's spacecraft. He discovers some of the dead bodies floating in the water. He examines and advances the nuclear bomb gradually. He appears to be trying to meet his father one time, and he notices a TV that is playing some good music of his father's choice. Roy sees his father's space uniform and the room where he discovered his father was still searching for new intelligent life in space after moving forward. He hears his father Clifford's voice as he is planting the bomb. Clifford tells Roy that his crew became mentally unstable and all of them died, which makes Roy emotional. He's attempting to repair the power surge, but it's constantly out of control. Roy approaches his father and inquires as to why he did not return. Roy promises to return his father to Earth, but it appears that he is unwilling to do so because his mission is only one way to find intelligent life in space. Roy quickly dresses his father while telling him how much he loves him. Clifford was pleased to see his son, but he also tells him that if he had been his partner, they could have searched further, and that sometimes humans must overcome the impossible. Roy notices that his father does not want to fail a mission because he has yet to discover intelligent life in space. He tries to convince his father that they are the only humans in the universe and that there is nothing else for them to discover. Roy now activates the nuclear bomb's countdown and departs with his father. Clifford abruptly begins to move away from him as he tries to get closer to his father and begs him to accompany him. But Clifford refuses to return from the mission alive. Roy notices his father's body moving through space. Roy also sees his father's research, which he gathered from the ship prior to detonating the nuclear bomb. His father has done something that no one could have discovered a long time ago. Roy arrives on Earth and is greeted by Spacecom soldiers. They are all relieved that he has completed the mission, while Roy is pleased because he is now a different person. In the end, Roy meets his wife, and they both live happily ever after. Subscribe for more videos like this, enable notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for taking the time to watch.